This is going to be a quick video about 7-segment displays, so hang in there because there's going to be a couple of important things that I'm going to mention at the end. All right. You have, of course, all seen 7-segment displays. They are called 7-segment displays because each little digit is made up of 7 segments, right? And for some reason, I don't know, here's a bunch of them. Clocks always seem to say 1208. I don't know. Both of these, the microwave and the digital clock says 1208. Anyway, 7-segment displays are all over the place. So let's see what the chip and the internal wiring looks like. So on the left here, of course, is a 7-segment display chip. And you can see that has a bunch of little pins here. This is meant to go in a breadboard. So you can see it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pins on this side and 5 pins on the other side. That's 10 pins. You're probably wondering, well, why does it have 10 pins if there are only 7 segments? Well, over here on the right is a little explanation. You can see that the 7 segments are named A through G, and it goes around clockwise. A, B, C, D, E, F, G is in the middle. Well, that is 7 segments, and of course the decimal point is a segment. So it's really 8 segments, I suppose. And then the top and bottom are used as either the power or ground, depending on the type of chip. Now, you don't have to plug in both the top and bottom to power or ground, just one or the other, and I'll get to that on the next slide. But anyway, you do need to know that the segments are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, around clockwise, and of course G is in the middle. All right, let's look at the next slide. Here's what the internal wiring looks like of a 7-segment display. And there are 2 types of 7-segment displays. Let's first talk about the common cathode 7-segment display. In the common cathode 7-segment display, you send to ground either the top or the bottom pin, one or the other. You do not need to do both. So let's just say I'll run the top to ground. I'm going to plug that into 0 volts. Actually, maybe I'll just write 0 volts. And if you want a segment to light up, you apply 5 volts. So if I want segment A to light up, here's segment A, I can run that to 5 volts, or I could run that to a switch and switch it on. If I want B to light up, so forth, I would run B to 5 volts. You get the idea. And you can see internally that if I run this top guy to ground, follow that little wire there. It's actually going to each of the little segments. Oh, that's really messy. But it's called a common ground. It's grounding every little segment. I'm just kind of going around there. Well, that's drawing a real mess there. But it's grounding every segment. And if you want this segment, again, to light up, you just power it. Like if I want E to light up here on the bottom, I power it. Simple as that. On the right here, I have a common anode 7-segment display. These 7-segment displays, and if you compare it to the left, look at each little segment there. This one, the arrow goes this way. In other words, the current flows in this direction, so I'm powering this side. In the other one, the common anode, you power the top, so I'll run this top to 5 volts, or the bottom. I could run the bottom to 5 volts. And if you want to turn a segment on, let's say I want to turn A on, I run it to 0 volts or ground. Let me say that again because that's kind of weird. In a common anode 7-segment display, you run either the top or the bottom. I could do it with the bottom too. You run that to power 5 volts. And if you want to turn a segment on, you ground it. So if I want to turn segment G on, for example, I send it to 0 volts, or I ground it. It's another way of saying it. So hopefully that makes sense. You do need to know the difference between a common cathode, where you ground the top and light up a segment by running 5 volts to it, and a common anode, where you power the top or bottom and you turn on a segment by sending it 0 volts. Okay, next slide. So here are 2 7-segment displays, and let's say I wanted to display the message hi, for example. Notice it says hi. Now, this is just the diagram. The chips, of course, as you know, have 5 pins on each side, but this just has A through G kind of labeled on the bottom. So on the left here, this is a common anode display, and you remember the common anode display, you run the top to power. This line is power right here. And if you want to turn a segment on, you ground it. So remember, this is segment A, this is segment B, C. So I want to turn B and C on, all right? So I ground B and C. And so this is A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. I also have to ground. E, F, and G I have to ground because I want them to get turned on, and I want to turn off A and D. So I should really power those. So that will write an H. On the right here, I have a common cathode display. Remember, the common cathode, you run either the top or bottom to ground, and if you want it to turn a segment on, you power it. It's the exact opposite. So in this case, I have A is the top. I have B and C that I want to turn on. Okay, so B and C I'm going to run to power. There we go. And everybody else I'm going to run to ground. Ground, ground, ground. I missed it there a little bit, but you get the idea. All right, hopefully you get what's going on. And that's how I write the message hi. Terrific. One more slide. So this is the last slide, and this is a very important one. When you actually go to wire these things on a breadboard, you have to have a resistor for each of the segments. Now notice here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 resistors. One is for the decimal point. But these lines coming in represent, either power or ground, but whatever. And you know that these are connected underneath. So in this particular case, it's either power or ground is going through this resistor, and you can use a range, somewhere between 2 and 300 ohm resistor is fine, and that runs through this wire, of course, and it runs into my 7-segment display. So just to be clear again, every segment must be run through a resistor, or you'll fry its little brain there, which you don't want to do. You don't want to cook your 7-segment display. And here, actually, this particular 7-segment display is a common anode because you can see this middle pin right here is going to power. And a common anode, you power the middle one, and if you want to turn a segment on, of course, you send it to ground. But I'm going to say this one more time. If you don't run each segment to a resistor, you will fry the 7-segment display, which you want to avoid doing. All right, that's it. Get to work.